After an accident, he reincarnates into a new magical world where he has magic powers related to water, but he is poor. At the very start of the story, we see a beautiful forest and trees with good animation. Right there, a boy wakes up. His name is Rio. Rio is a water magician who can use water as magic, and he looks exactly like Yuta. Now how Rio got here is explained to us. So one day Rio wakes up in a new place where there is another person, and that person tells him, "Let me tell you that you are not in the afterlife right now." Now this god, or whatever person it is, asks for Rio's name and also says, "Finally, after so many days, I have met a visitor." This person tells him, "Rio, do you know that you have died and sadly you are here?" Rio already knew that he died because of an accident. Then Rio asks, "Are you a god?" And yes, Rio is still in the afterlife. The person says, "No, I am not God, but for your convenience in your words, you can call me an angel." Now Rio understands that he is going to reincarnate in some new world. That's why he was thinking, how will I start my life in this new world? The angel tells him, "I can't give you any job because no one told me that you have any work in that new world." After knowing these things, Rio says, "If that's the case, then I want to live my life peacefully and slowly." The angel says, "The world you are going to reincarnate into is full of magic, and this world's name is FAI. And in FAI, till now only, 20% of selected people can use spells." The angel gives Rio the power of water magic because Rio can do very well in it. That's what they and Rio think. And because Rio wanted a slow life, that's why he will be reincarnated in the forest of Rondo. Here, Rio is given a new house, along with food for 2 months, which is stored with ice magic. Rio feels this, which is the truth. To save from monsters, there is also a barrier around the house, and he is also given a book with which he will know about this world. And Rio is able to read this book without knowing this world's language. Rio is given 2 books. After this, Rio comes out and tries to practice his water magic. Now Rio realizes his power. He comes into the house and stops using magic because now he is trying to light a fire outside with wood. But because of some effort and tiredness, Rio fails to light the fire. Then lying down, he looks at the sun. From this, he gets the idea that he should try to freeze his water. He tries to do it, but it doesn't happen now because Rio wants to make ice. Doing that also feels cool to him, and he also needs it right now. That's why he starts concentrating and uses his magic. He tries to remove the heat from the water so that it can be made into ice. After doing this for quite a while, finally, he manages to convert the water into ice by concentrating the H2O. Then he becomes very happy with this, and by using it, he also passes the sunlight's rays through that large circle of ice, because of which he also manages to light the fire. Then night comes. Now he is bathing. While bathing, Rio thinks that because of magic, his day became quite easy. And with magic, living life is also becoming quite easier. While eating, he thinks, "Makal gave me food for 2 months. This means I will have to learn hunting soon so that I don't die of hunger." After this, Rio thinks, because there is a barrier outside, I don't have the danger of monsters. This means I will also have to practice offensive moves so that I can go outside and hunt. Next morning, as soon as it comes, Rio goes outside and practices his water magic. Though he becomes successful in attacking, his attack is not effective. By using water ball, he cannot affect the tree much. Because of this, Rio uses water jet, but it is also not effective, and he fails. This makes Rio disappointed, but he remembers that Cain had said, the most effective way to use water magic or any magic is imagination. So the better you imagine, the better your magic's outcome will be. After remembering this at night, he practices for a long time. It also becomes evening. Because of this, his practice becomes a little better than before. Then he comes back to bathe. After bathing at night, a new morning comes, and now he is using his ice magic for offensive moves. But even now, his ice magic is not so good that it can harm someone. But Rio thinks in himself. That practice makes any person perfect. That's why he keeps practicing from morning to evening. Because of this, he becomes very tired. But at one time, he becomes successful in making many ice crystals. After this, his mana becomes very low. He becomes tired, so he rests. And after that, his training keeps going for many days continuously. And now he becomes successful in creating ice crystals very quickly. Using these ice crystals, he makes a small weapon, and then he moves his adventure forward and heads into the forest. Here, he tries to find many things. He finds a stone with which now he can easily light fire. He also searches for some herbs. Rio is lost in the thought that when will he get herbs? But when he looks behind, big Lies boar has come behind him, and that big pig is very angry. It charges to attack at great speed. Because of this, Rio becomes very scared. So he he says to himself, run away quickly, but his body is not moving. When that pig is just about to hit Rio, suddenly, because of remembering something, he comes to his senses and saves himself. Rio was very scared, but he says to himself, I cannot die in this world. I have ice magic. Those are arts magic. Then he uses ice magic to make the pig slip. And then, with the help of ice magic, he also manages to kill it. Rio becomes successful. Then he learns that lazy boars are the weakest kind. At night, he is reading that same book. Rio finds out the rest of the papers are normal editions, but the last 2 pages are add-ons. And there, he gets information about a dragon. And these dragons' power is so much that they alone can destroy an entire city. Because of this, the book says, if you face a dragon, run away from there. That's for your safety. Rio learns about another entity whose name is Akuma, and not much information is given about him. But it is said, pray that you don't encounter him. He thinks maybe this world is very big. Then he goes to sleep. Next day, he tastes a berry. He really likes its taste. But just at that moment, a big bird kind of monster attacks him. At first, he succeeds in dodging. Then, by using ice magic, he keeps going forward. Rio says this is an assassin hawk who uses air slash. Rio attacks with many aqua jets on the hawk, but the hawk very easily counters and comes forward. But at the right time, Rio uses an ice shield. Because of this, the hawk loses. But at the next moment, surprising everyone, the hawk flies up, but we can see that one of its eyes is injured. And after watching Rio for a while, it leaves, and tired. Rio lies down there saying, this life is much harder than I thought. Now Rio heads towards his home, but in trying to escape from the hawk, he has lost his way. But he sees a soldier, a girl who has no head but has a horse. After this days pass, and one day Rio defeats a big snake monster with his ice power. Then he catches a fish and stores it. And just like this, his practice keeps going. He also goes to the sea and tries to defeat a big ox. And now we can see Rio has become so powerful that with just his mouth, he can cut a big rock. And with all these improved skills, Rio becomes very happy. Then that night, he meets that same soldier again. It turns out this soldier's name is Dulhan. Rio tells us that Dulhan are very strong, and there is no mention of them in his book either, though even Rio is confused whether this is really a monster or not. But he decides to fight, so he moves forward and attacks it with many strikes. Then Rio keeps striking for a while. Dulhan doesn't get affected by his strikes, but from Dulhan's strike, Rio's barrier breaks twice, and Rio also misses one of his attacks. Tired, Rio has lost. He tells us he knows that with this level he cannot defeat Dulhan, but every night he comes here. Dulhan makes him a sword of water, which he converts to ice and gives to him. Rio might have to master the sword. After giving the sword, Dulhan leaves from there. Then the next day, Rio is standing somewhere. Rio sees that same hawk, which has now become strange because its color has completely changed. It looks even more evil. Rio thinks, as it evolves. Suddenly, the hawk attacks with air slash, so Rio uses a 5-layer ice seal, but his ice seal breaks very easily, along with escaping from the hawk. One more time, when Rio comes face to face with the hawk, then he uses 10-layer ice seal. But again, all his seals break. One by one, Rio's all attacks are failing. Rio is very troubled. Then suddenly, the hawk attacks him with thunder, but Rio barely escapes. But at the next moment when the hawk pounces, Rio takes out his sword, and this time, Rio with the sword fights the hawk. He even cuts its air slash with the sword, and now the hawk moves towards Rio to make a very powerful attack. But at the right time, Rio manages to stab the hawk with his sword. This stab was very powerful. Because of this, the hawk now falls to the ground, but it is not dead. Now Rio apologizes to the hawk because it lost one eye because of him. And Rio also says, because of you, I became so strong. Because if you were not there, I wouldn't have been afraid of dying. And because of this, I wouldn't have become stronger. The hawk evolved just to fight Rio. After realizing this, Rio says, I respect your effort, your courage, and maybe that's why I also free you from this world. Saying this, he pulls out the sword and the hawk falls down. Then somewhere a dragon is going and its eyes fall on Rio. That's why it comes down and talks to him telepathically. The dragon itself is surprised that its telepathy is working because after a long time, it has met a human. Now the dragon asks Rio, have you seen any black evolved hawk? After hearing this, Rio gets scared. Nervously, he says, if that hawk was yours, then please forgive me. After hearing this, the dragon understands that he has defeated that hawk. Right there, the dragon also notices that the sword Rio has is a very rare weapon. And this sword used to belong to the fairy king. The dragon says, I am sure there is something about you because he gave you this sword. After this, Rio says, actually, Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Now, before the dragon can answer, it hears some sound. That's why it says, forgive me, but now I have to go somewhere. And it was nice talking to you. Before leaving, Rio tells the dragon, my name is Rio. Can you tell me yours? The dragon says its name is Lewin. Saying this, the dragon leaves. And Rio is happy that today he talked to a dragon. Rio becomes very happy. On the other side, Male is watching all these things of Rio from above. And he is surprised, thinking, who is this cheater traitor? It turns out that Male sent another girl here 10 years ago. And also there is something special in Rio. And the traitor trade is actually nothing but his hidden talent called eternal youth. On the other side, this person is lying unconscious near a river beside a ship. And the next day, Rio comes here. He sees a big ship broken into 2 parts. Rio had come here because he felt like having salt and some seafood. Seeing the situation here, Rio is very surprised. But he also finds a person who is not moving at all. But then he notices another person who is moving. And this is that same red person. Now what really happened to this person is shown to us. So there was a very terrible night. A very big squid and octopus monster attacked this ship. Because of this, he couldn't do anything. And his ship completely got crushed and sank into the water. And he also started going into the depths of the sea. Now this person opens his eyes. He is here, meaning in Rio's house. But he doesn't know this. When he comes outside, he meets Rio. Rio says, I'm glad you are alive and in good condition. And we can also see that Rio has made a very good garden too. But this person is very surprised because he didn't feel Rio's presence. And he also sees why he is wearing such strange clothes. The person says, my name is Abel and I'm happy to meet you. And did you save me? Rio says, I just brought you to my house. And I apologize that the other people with you could not be saved. But Abel doesn't care about this because he says, don't worry, they were all smugglers. Right then, during this conversation, Rio feels hungry, so he says, let's talk while eating. By the way, my name is Rio. Rio says I don't have any more clothes because except for making clothes, I can do everything very easily. Abel feels troubled, thinking, why is he thinking about whether he has clothes or money? Because he saved my life. I should respect him. Rio says there is no one else nearby. That's why I live alone. Abel learns that all the food is gathered by Rio by hunting, and he is very impressed by this. Also, Rio says I use water magic for everything. Actually, I am a water magician. Abel is very impressed by this. He says in Province less than half the people can use magic, and I cannot. Rio feels a bit strange because Mokkel said only 20% people can use magic. But here, it seems a bit more than half, or a bit less than half, can use magic. After this, Abel goes with Rio to see the coast. On the way, he asks Rio, since you are a water magician, don't you need a staff? Rio says no. Hearing this, Abel thinks I messed up again. I should know that Rio has lost all the staffs he had, and that's why he is living in such poverty. To help Rio, Abel says, please let me go ahead so that you can stay protected behind. But Rio says no, you don't need to do that. But still, Abel insists to go ahead. They reach their destination. There, the bodies are not near the ship. Rio thinks maybe either someone ate those bodies or they went into the sea. After hearing and feeling this, Abel says, thank you that you saved me, otherwise today I would also be in the same condition as them. Rio replies very politely. That's why Abel says you don't need to be so polite to me because you are the one who saved my life. That's why you should call me Mister. That is, I am not older than you. You can treat me at your level. You can consider me your friend. Please call me Mister. After hearing this, Rio says, though you are older than me, but if you really want this, then fine. From today, I will treat you like that. After searching for a while, Abel comes out saying, I didn't find what I was looking for. Rio asks Abel, what will you do now? Abel says, maybe now I should go towards Loon Town. Right then, Rio doesn't know where Loon Place really is, but Abel doesn't get very worried about this. And he asks Rio, do you want to come with me? Abel says, I know this might sound a bit strange, but I will need your help a lot. That's why we can go together to Loon City. Abel says, I need a guide, and you know these areas very well. That's why you can help me a lot. Please come with me. After thinking for a while, Rio says, okay, I am ready to go with you to help you, but before going, I need to get some things ready. Abel shakes hands with Rio and says, thank you very much that you're ready to help. Rio, he's looking at his home and flower and fruit garden companions, and after it gets dark, he leaves from here. That's why Evil asks, where are you going at this hour? So Rio says, don't worry. I often go out at this time. I have some personal work outside. Then Abel says, be careful. I thought he said no one lives nearby. I think he respects his loved ones. I really don't know if Rio has always lived here alone, but I shouldn't interfere in any of his activities, work or business. Rio meets the bride and tells her, thank you so much for training with me. You taught me a lot, but now I'm going to leave this forest. That's why today I came to meet you and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Also, today is going to be our last battle. That's why I'm ready to fight you with all my heart and soul. Saying this, Rio starts striking the bride with his spear and keeps pushing her back one by one. After fighting continuously for a long time, Rio becomes very tired. While leaving, Rio says thank you to the bride. Then the bride uses her magic and and prepares a very beautiful dress for Rio. Getting the dress, Rio says, "Thank you very much. I'll wear it with pride." Now both of them have set out on their new journey. As they leave, Rio turns back and looks at his home, and then moves forward again. After walking for a while, a big boar comes in their way. This time, Abel says, "I will fight it," and successfully, he kills the boar in a single attack. Leo is quite amazed. So Evil explains to him what it was. El says these are some techniques that non-magic users use, especially soldiers. After spending one night there, they move forward and see two laser fog inside the forest. Because they could be very strong opponents, Evil tries to get past them carefully. But the next moment, Rio notices that the same laser fog is chasing them. So he tells Abel that we're being chased, and now I will help you because a lot of laser fog are coming toward us. With just one ice attack, Rio easily defeats many laser fog, and Abel also helps Rio a lot. After a while, Abel asks Rio what that was that he used. Rio says, "I don't really know, but it was an ice magic that I created from water." El says what you used was a kind of wind magic, which is very difficult for you to do. But Rio says no, it wasn't wind magic. It's kind of similar to it, but it's still water magic. Hearing this, El calms down a bit. Then he says, "Okay, let's go." But before that, Rio creates some water and gives it to him, saying, "Here, drink this first. You're tired. Then we'll move forward." Oh, then they move ahead. And seeing a coin, Rio says, "I had never seen money." El says this is the coin used in the Kingdom of Night. It turns out that each province has its own separate coin. El also says that the Kingdom of Nightly is one of the three major nations, and there are also two empires. First, the Debui Empire, and second, the Handry Federation. Hearing about the empires, Rio's reaction is a bit strange. So Abel asks, "Don't you like empires?" Rio says no, it's not like that. But Debui is such a strange name. Rio clarifies that for any people, the name of the city or nation they live in matters a lot, and I wouldn't want to tell anyone that I live in Debui. That feels quite strange to me. As they move ahead, Abel cuts a stone because they're being attacked. Rio also protects himself. Then they get surrounded by golem monsters. Rio says, "I thought they'd look like humans." Abel tells Rio to stay here and moves forward, and with a single move splits the big stone of the golem in half. But those golems can regenerate themselves. Abel steps away from the golem. At that moment, Rio says, "If you don't mind, I'd like to do an attack. May I?" After getting Abel's permission, he attacks with 10 layers of ice walls. Seeing Rio's amazing power, Abel is shocked too. And Rio says, "Don't worry, I can finish the rest of the golems too." But even after finishing all, one monster wasn't moving. That felt quite strange to Rio, but they also see its magic stone, meaning they're going to get a very rare stone. At the same time, they sit there keeping an eye on a very dangerous giant hippo. Some flying monsters are also coming from above. Seeing this, Rio gets very happy because now he'll get to see a monster fight. And then a big giant hippo stands up, which really is very big. All the dragon monsters attack the giant hippo one by one, but with just one roar of the giant hippo, they fall down. At night, while cooking and eating, they talk. Here, Abel tells about dungeons. Rio becomes very excited. It turns out where they're going, there's also a secret dungeon, and Rio feels a bit annoyed that why did he hide this from me until now? But Abel says, "No, I didn't know you really like dungeons so much. That's why I didn't say." Hearing this, Rio says, "Is there anything else you forgot to tell me?" Then Abel says, "I'm sure you know about elves and dwarves, right?" Rio says, "Tell me in detail." Then El says dwarves are very skilled smiths and very good at fighting too, and there are many in Love City. And as for elves, there are very few there. I think only one. Then Rio says, "I had pictured something like this," but he doesn't tell El how, so El feels a bit upset. However, the night ends and day begins. Moving ahead, Rio asks, "After crossing the mountain, will we reach human territory?" But Evil doubts this. After hearing this, Evil asks Rio, "How did you get all this information?" Rio thinks about how that dragon had told him everything in detail, but he doesn't say anything to Evil yet. He says, "Maybe I knew it already." After walking a bit, a very big flying monster comes behind them, and that monster keeps staring at Abel, which makes Abel very scared. However, both of them throw a piece of meat up to make the monster leave from there. They both feel happy that they survived. Then they keep moving toward the snow-covered mountain. They talk that if they had fought that monster, they would have had a lot of trouble. Evil admits that the monster shouldn't have been there, meaning something is wrong here. El also clarifies that because of these mountains, many monsters stay far from human territory. At that moment, Rio gets a thought, and his suspicion turns out to be correct because right in front of them, those dragon monsters are eating another monster. Rio asks Abel, "Aren't we going to fight?" So Abel says wyverns are very strong. To defeat one wyvern, it takes a lot of effort from 20 soldiers, so maybe we should avoid them. But after talking a bit more and making a plan, Rio moves forward, and El also has to follow him. Here, Rio uses his ice magic to trap them, and El uses his sword to attack. This way, they knock down two wyverns. Two wyverns still attack from the sky, but Rio easily takes them down with his ice magic, and El collects the stone after finishing the last job, thinking this was quite easy. Now here, they both decide that they should use the same tactic to defeat the others too, because there are more wyverns coming. Now they move forward and come to a peak and see the view. Then both of them smile at each other while looking at the nice view. That's all for today. See?